Good morning, this is Dan with Bit by Bit. I'm back with the actual demo of the SDRplay and the software. Everything you see here comes with the unit. It's priced in a $100 price range for this one. They have different versions that are more expensive, but unless you need a dual tuner or dual antennas at the same time and be able to switch between them, or if you need something called a bias tee, there's really no need to purchase the other units. They are a tad more sensitive, but not enough where I'm gonna draw a line on spending the money on it. The software looks like it's out of the NSA spy room. The box up top is the FFT. What I'm doing here is I'm telling the receiver to tune 106.1 megahertz, which is FM. And here in Beaumont's Big Dog 106. It's a clear channel station that overmodulates out the wazoo. If you look at it, it's set for a 8 megahertz bandwidth, so it tunes between 102.5 to 110, which is 8 megahertz difference. So I'm able to pick up all these different stations and noise and frequencies in this special pass. Below it, you see something that's called a waterfall plot. It's a breakdown of the signal. Then the bottom window down here, it's a more expanded view of the signal. And you can see how the signal looks. Now each one of these peaks is a different thing. There's a carrier wave, there's a data block, and there's a few other things in here. If you take a picture of this, they have databases on the internet that tell you what the signal is and what it should look like. And it'll actually explain what each one of these little bumps or peaks are. But this is the main radio signal here. I have the volume turned down so you can't hear it. And now the software is pretty intuitive, but you have to have some practice and with amateur radio. There's a start and a stop button that gets it tuning. You can do RF gain, which is just the sensitivity of it. You can open up multiple tuners and listen to multiple stations at the same time. I can scan over 1 million frequencies with this CPU. So in theory, you can have 1 million one of these tuner windows open and you can listen to them all. It's ungarbled. Remember when I'm sitting in this room, my body's being bombarded by millions of different kinds of RF signals. Noise, radio, natural, outer space, radiation. And each one of these has a discrete frequency and time domain with it. And the FFT is able to isolate that. So when I type in 106.1, it tunes that frequency. You have a bunch of different filters, noise reduction, FM modes. There's a squelch, there's a volume knob. You can manually input a frequency or go to a memory bank. It has a scanner function, just like a handheld Bearcat scanner. You have control over the filter width, noise reduction parameters, gain, noise blanker. You can set up a memory panel to store channels, and you can rearrange these windows in any fashion you like, and they got different backgrounds for it. The more smoother the FFT, the more the sampling points, the more CPU you need. That's why you'll see these bars start to move if you change it. Basically, with my rig here, it doesn't even break a sweat. It's only using 9% of the total system resources. It's only taking up 4% of the 100% of the SDR's resources. So it is rather efficient software. You really have to have a really, really old computer not to be able to use this. I haven't run into one that doesn't. My 5-year-old laptop handles it fine. This old computer does, even though it is a pretty sturdy chip, being a high-end desktop version. Okay, let me go ahead and turn up the sound a little bit so you can hear. Songs playing and stuff. It's called RDS. That's where one of these bumps are down here. I can change frequency just by clicking on what I want.
It's online today to impact the next 10 years of
This
healthcare,
signal's 100 miles
infrastructure,
away.
and
Antenna's on the
education.
ground. I'm still
Respond
picking it up
online
loud and
today
clear.
to make America's tomorrow brighter. Shape your future. Start here at 2020census.gov.
I watched him for years in the movies. several years ago, went to a movie premiere in Nashville. And I got to meet him and Ray Liotta and some other folks that were in the movie. A buddy of mine wrote the movie.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Fidelity Wealth Management, where advisors work with their clients to develop flexible investment strategies.
On Big Dog 106.
As you can see, the audio is quite good. It matches pretty much any analog digital AM FM radio, which most people don't listen to anymore. If you take a look at this window up here, you notice that the noise floor is minus 100 to minus 120 decibels. This radio is extremely sensitive. I mean, you're pulling a signal out of a noise floor that's almost dead quiet. And everything it shows isn't real time. You really have to spend some money on an analog amateur rig to get this noise level. But with the SDR, you can pretty much do it on the cheap. Some of the higher end units do better. But if you look at it here, this is just sort of the baseline noise. It's very, very small. Maybe 5 decibels and or minus 105 down, 101 down. See, when you move the cursor, it shows the info about where the cursor is. It'll give you the frequency and it'll give you the noise floor. Now if I change the gain, I can change the noise floor. FM is an extremely strong signal. It tends to blank out other signals, so you want the gain down. If it overloads the digital chips inside the box, it'll flash overload, but you can't do any harm to it. Whereas on an analog radio, if you overload it, yeah, you can do harm. Now, if someone's transmitting on a ham radio next to my antenna, yeah, it will fry the box, because some of that energy comes back in. So this is the FM band. If I want to listen to the AM band, all I do is I type in a different number, and there's the AM band. If I click on this peak, that's at 2.5 kilohertz. If I click in here, that's 0. So essentially, it'll tune anything from 0 hertz all the way up to 2 gigahertz, which is satellite. There are no gaps in coverage on this box. If I want to listen to 790 out of Houston, you type in 790, hit enter, change this to AM, and when I turn on the volume, you should start to hear something.
Not long after St. Patrick's Day, but you had another bar kind of holiday. Okay,
Yeah.
you got that in March. Okay, hold on. And May, we've got this one.
Yeah.
Classic Acura is your home for unbelievable
So we're at
savings on
560
award-winning luxury
kilohertz.
SUVs
It's
and
a local
sedans.
AM station.
Looking to steal a deal on a new
Center of the
2020
signal's
Acura
exactly
model?
0.
Shop your Beaumont area Acura dealer, Classic Acura, for the year's best pricing, aggressive
This
financing
peak
offers,
at zero's
exclusive
noise. It's
conquest and
internally
loyalty
generated by the
programs,
radio
and more.
electronics.
Come test drive, feel the thrill, and find out why more customers are choosing Acura
0
than
to
ever
roughly
before.
400
Make
hertz
the
is
switch
long
and upgrade
wave.
to Acura
If I
today.
live near a
Visit
submarine
Classic
base, I
Acura
can
at
pick
I-10
up
on the
the
corner.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans
some
and
of the
Rocket Mortgage.
radio talk
During the
from
challenging
Canadian
times
subs.
we're all experiencing,
There
our
are some
top
long
priority
wave
is the health and safety of the
broadcast
communities
stations,
we
which
serve.
is just not in
And while
America.
it's true
There are
that
a few
things are changing
navigational beacons
rapidly
in that
every day,
area.
one thing that'll
But
never
here in
change
Texas,
is our
it's pretty
commitment
much
to
dead
giving
between
you
0
the
and
best mortgage
500
experience. At Rocket
kilohertz.
Mortgage, our guiding philosophy of
This
every
peak at
client,
60
every time,
is the
no
line
exceptions,
noise from
no
the power
excuses,
company.
exists
60 hertz.
for
There's
times
another one
like
at
right
120.
now. We understand
240,
that hardships may arise,
480.
and we're prepared to help. If you currently work with us and need assistance with your mortgage,
But if you notice
contact
here, the
us
noise floor is
24/7
minus
at
100.
rocketmortgage.com. As we all think about ways to save money,
It's just a matter
let me
of
remind you
pointing
that
and clicking. This is 990. Yep, see it's centered at 0. That's your station. It's out of Houston.
Cell may be poised to try to fill the void.
It's
A source
15-10.
tells Pro Football Talk that the NFL would try to move games to Saturdays, at least some games, and make them exclusively available on Amazon.
If you listen carefully, you hear a bunch of hums and clicks. You see all these spurious signals. Those are noise pulses. A lot of people don't realize there's a ton of electronic noise. Neighbor turns on a coffee maker, you turn on your monitor, you plug in your wall wart to charge your phone. All these things radiate noise at very, very low levels, which this SDR is able to pick up, amplify, and present. It's a real challenge to figure out how to get rid of it. Some people stand outside and they throw circuit breakers until the peaks disappear, or they turn off the breaker to the house and they listen to the radio off of a battery. If it's coming from the outside, a power company will come by law and they have to replace any leak in insulators that they have. It really is an elusive thing, noise, but all these LED lights, electronic switches, electronic Wi-Fi, TPS sensors on a tire pressure on a car, is a wireless Bluetooth signal, Bluetooth headsets, your phone. A fan kicks on and off. When your monitor goes to sleep, it chirps out a radio signal that tells the computer that it's asleep. So it's real hard to, in the modern world, to isolate noise. Some of the other bands are shortwave. I have the wrong antenna, so you may or may not hear something.
American Urban Spice, Miracle 2 Soaps, Vitameer, Humana Food Storage, to name just a few. Fight back against large corporations when you buy from the public.
Search of humanity from Earth to Mars. It's a mystical dance-like performance symbolizing our yearning for God. Supreme.
781-9829. Support small businesses and buy from the big guys.
These are the shortwave signals.
De banda 31 metros. Radio World/Chess, preparando el pueblo para el pronto regreso del Salvador.
This is the WWV atomic clock out of Fort Collins, Colorado. It's the most accurate atomic clock in the world. They use it for frequency calibration and time and ham radio. You'll hear a computerized voice announcing the time. Sort of get the idea on that. If you listen carefully, you hear a female voice that's out of Hawaii, and a male voice is out of Fort Collins, Colorado.
For how
long? Basically, there's a 5, 10, 15, and a 20 megahertz time channel.
I couldn't find that in your music.
Turn off Alexa. Another source of government monitoring. Again, these are just the shortwave bands. It's noise. So the noise spikes are evenly spaced out. Stuff. More noise.
Sin embargo, la forma de un sabor que todavía no se ha extendido mucho.
This is probably Radio Havana.
Pues es una forma preventiva. Es para personas que incluso todavía no tienen la enfermedad.
be honest with you, the shortwave reception is better on the analog rig, mainly because this antenna is not the right length to receive the signal, whereas the antenna on the Panasonic is. But with the appropriate antenna, all you need is a long piece of wire. You can really sharpen up that reception. The cell phone and the computer has pretty much gotten rid of all shortwave broadcasting. If you live in a foreign country, your only choice in news is the state media, so a lot of people would do shortwave. Hear another point of view. Nowadays, you can fire up your cell phone and do it. What you're hearing there is some automatic repeating station. It's probably one of these digital water meters transmitting. Could be a baby monitor. Just don't know. Just got to check the frequencies. See where it's at. Turn that down. Some other stuff you can look at.
Control the way we react. If we are aware of what we are or what we are not, it will be so easy.
Got some digital FM radio. It's probably a artifact of one of the FM bands that the receiver artificially makes. It's some multiple of some station. It's probably one of the 100 megahertz FM stations. If I go to a different IF mode, I can get a little better look at it. This is an actual TV signal that's picking up 40 megahertz. It's broadcast TV over there antenna. All your information's in this huge swath of data. Of course, you can't decode it, but it's there. If you want to take a look at the police scanners, this is the frequency range here. It's 800 something megahertz. Some of these peaks are analog, some are digital, some are control channels. If it's analog, you hear it to talk. If it's digital, you just hear a bunch of beeping and buzzing. These are all digital. There's nothing here. You gotta have the coding software running. That's a digital trunk channel there. Can't hear it unless you have the decoding software. There's very little analog radio anymore. It's all digital. Each one of these peaks is a different police car, base station, handheld radio in the plant. It uses the same digital trunking as fire and EMS. Later on, I'll do a demo where I actually decode that. This one looks pretty strong, whatever she is. One thing you can do is you can scan the aircraft bands. We'll do that real quick. I'm going to power this part of the demo down. So here the noise floor is negative 125 decibels. But as soon as it hears someone key up a microphone, it'll lock in on it and you'll be able to hear it. With this virus thing going around, the amount of air traffic is really, really diminished. It's almost gone. Typically I can get like 30 planes. Now it's hard to find even one. No one's flying. Just give it a listen, see if it finds anything.
The 30.4, descend of the Bay 3 with Delta.
See how clear that was? See, the scanner and the radio does work, just that if there's no signal there, it just doesn't make one up. It's either the dead silent noise floor or the signal. Remember, some of these planes are at 40,000 feet, but it has to physically strike my antenna. You have to have line of sight. That's why I can't pick them up on the ground, but I can get them when they're up in the air. Now, ideally, that antenna's up in the tree, but I'm still trying to figure out how to ground it in case it gets hit by lightning. And down here in Texas, lightning's a problem. That's why it's sitting outside and not high up on the roof somewhere. But it still works on the ground. But the main reason why it's dead now is just no one's flying during the virus. Everything's pretty much shut down. But you can leave the software running in a corner and do other stuff on the computer. It takes up a very, very small amount of resources. It's only taken up 12% of my CPU load just by running all this stuff. But again, it does.
Our families and loved ones, our neighbors.
Pulls up that channel. It looks real messy because it's on the wrong IF mode. There's that overload. Back to slider down in the game. Turn them south.
There will be parties again
Back
soon,
at it.
and family gatherings. There'll be parades.
All right, before we
and
go, I'm
sporting
just going to
events
demonstrate
and
the
concerts.
ADSB.
To help our
See if we can
communities
find a
when
plane.
they come back together, respond to the 20.
That closes out. What you're looking at is the ADSB dump. Any signal that comes from a passing plane, it starts to decode the messages. The more messages you get, the more information you get. It's mainly designed to be an anti-collision option. Because what they're starting to do is they're starting to shut down these ground-based radars and control towers. In theory, to avoid a collision, you can use your ADSB, which is mandatory on all aircraft. And if something happens to the ground radar station, planes can sort of have their own mini radar system by using these beacons. You can avoid collision, you can find another aircraft, you can find out if someone's on the wrong flight path. But by law, they're required to have one of these installed inside the aircraft. It's probably the size of a CB radio it mounts on the instrument panel. It has a little bump antenna that goes on the outside. Typically, when there's no COVID, I'll get 30, 40 airplanes. If I go out into a vacant field, the number goes up. But here at the house, I can get usually about 10 to 20 of them. It's just that at 9 o'clock, nothing's flying by the house. The range is about 200 kilometers with line of sight. But you easily can get a plane at 35, 40,000 feet. But as they start to approach the ground, the line of sight becomes an issue. If I go outside and stand on top of my antenna and look up, if I can't see the aircraft or have a line of sight, it just won't pick it up. It's just standard physics. That's why I can't see all the planes leaving Houston. They have to hit altitude and start coming towards my direction. If I take the laptop out into a field, I can get airplanes as far as Oklahoma and Arkansas, but the line of sight's better when I'm outside in an open field. All right, now I've found an aircraft. As it starts to receive the header information, it'll tell you the altitude, speed, positioning, and the actual flight number. This is with a flight aware when your phone comes into play. This thing's at 19,000 feet, 372 knots. It's heading almost northwest. How do you actually visualize it? You go to the plane plotter data. It's a virtual radar. Puts up like a Google map, and it'll show you the aircraft positioning. This is us in Beaumont. There's not enough information yet to get a position, but when it does, it'll put up the plane. So it's still tracking. Could always try restoring it. Okay, I found one. This is flight. This flight's Southwest Airlines 575. She's at 20,000 feet. About to fly over Jefferson County, Jack Brooks Airport. It shows the flight path. It shows you where it's gone, where it's been, turbulence, heading, speed. And of course, you didn't have the COVID. You see a whole lot more. Just this one. If I click on the aircraft, if it's in the database, it'll show the actual picture of the aircraft. Basically, it grabs a photograph from these three aviation websites. If someone doesn't post the image, it doesn't show the image. But this is real-time data. It's not being streamed from anywhere else. It's actually striking the antenna and the box is decoding. It's not grabbing FlightAware itself. But this is what people would upload to the FlightAware software. The second aircraft that's coming in the range is a Citation. Looks like it's a private, it's a civil. It's a small jet. It's at 36,000 feet. It's almost at 7 miles, people. Heading's 300 knots. About 450 miles per hour. There's no picture, it's a private plane. So this is how the ADSB works. It's going to bail out of it. The longer you leave that window open, the more. On a day pre-virus, about 5 or 10 seconds, this thing lights up and fills the page with different tracking paths to different planes. But you get the flight number again, the flight, the altitude, the speed. All this is perfectly legal. They will actually pay you to do this if you don't have they don't have decent coverage in that rural area. But in Beaumont, in Houston, there's thousands of these sticks and there's thousands of commercial ADSB stations. But if you live out in the hills in a small city in Alaska, they may pay you to set one up. It's perfectly legal. I can't alter the path of these airplanes. I can't jam them. I can't hack them. I can't crash them. It's not die-hard airport mode here. It just enables you to analyze the data and plot it. It's fairly safe. This information is stored on the computer if you want to pull it up again. Interesting note, when Donald Trump came to speak in Louisiana at the natural gas dump here, they fly a advanced wireless communications plane in case something goes wrong and he's got to launch a new code or something. I could actually track that aircraft flying a rectangular flight path on this thing. I should have saved the data, but it shows it as U.S. Air Force. When you click on the picture, it shows a picture of the actual common Air Force spy plane. It gives you the flight heading. It gives you all the data. It's sort of serving to me because if I'm a terrorist, in theory, I could track that. But it also shows Air Force One too. So just imagine if I can do it with this, what a government can do with an unlimited budget. But there is no way of sending a signal to the plane and changing its course or anything. But just the fact that I'm able to track a high-end military government plane without any specialized gear is sort of worrisome, but again, it's legal. Anyone that has one of these, if you had your FlightAware software running at the time, you'd probably see it. But it was neat. The aircraft just flew this perfect rectangle on the map. Then when Trump left, the plane left with him. Okay, that's the end of the demo for today. I'm gonna set up the digital scanning for another time. Please feel free to check it out and text me or post any comments you have on it. Thank you. Have a good day.